which is why I love Cincinnati State even now, because of the diversity of thought. You just are exposed to, the diversity of the school is rich in the classroom.
Yes.
You see that in the discussions. And so, yeah, that's kind of when I started knowing, like, I gotta get back there. So I was in school for 7 years straight, going part-time, but absolutely loved it. My initial goal was to go back to school and get my degree as an educator. Yes, I thought I wanted to be an educator.
You are an educator.
Well, I am an educator.
You are an educator. Educators aren't just in the classroom. People are teachers at work in fields like human resources or in fields like leadership and management, where you are teaching, you are instructing. It's just not English and math or spelling or whatever. It's this whole other ways that people need to learn and be coached, and that's a completely valuable form of education that's outside the classroom.
That's true.
So
what makes us resilient? What makes some people continue to pursue their goals and dreams in spite of roadblocks or challenges? What if all we needed was an opportunity? Imagine if we trusted our talents, our abilities, and our strengths, then took a chance on ourselves. FutureProof is a Cincinnati State faculty and student-created podcast where students, alumni, and employers share adventures in learning outside of the classroom. We hope you will cheer, cry, and laugh along the way as we share our students' stories of resiliency and overcoming the odds. Find out what happens when we finally stop saying no and start saying yes.
hello and welcome to FutureProof. I'm Jayne Martin Dressing.
And I'm Eimee Donbar.
FutureProof is a podcast out of Cincinnati State where we interview our very talented and successful alumni and hear about what life has been like for them since they left Cincinnati State. And we are very excited today to have a guest who is a longtime member of the Cincinnati State community, and we are looking forward to hearing her story. And we are back after over a month. It's been over a month hiatus we took.
It's too much.
Our Eimee was just traveling.
Everyone. Ciao
to Italy and having a high school graduate, and she's also, listeners, if you don't know this, but you probably do, because if you've met Eimee, she has told you that she is a huge Dave Matthews fan.
Huge.
So she also almost didn't come back from tour.
That's my next career objective, is to be a Dave Matthews Band roadie. So really, I need to talk to Dave and Mike and maybe take some classes, like, for my next career.
That we could start a roadie program at Cincinnati State.
I'm not kidding. Like, and when I'm like, I've told my people, like, when life gets bad, that's what I'm just going to go do that.
Wow.
Like, just do that.
That sounds like I'm just going to slice meat at the deli, because it doesn't sound like you're going to get any emails about it. Whatever job I have moving forward is not going to involve email. Do roadies get email?
I don't
maybe
think
I could do that.
Like, they wear black T-shirts and they just, it looks.
They get to hear the music.
And they just, like, do the thing. Like, they're just like, do the thing. Yeah, I think I might.
So we've had a long break. It's summer. It's summer at Cincinnati State. It's quiet here. We are back in the studio, which is awesome because we've really had a break, and so it's good to be.
Break.
It's good to be back. It's good to be out here again recording. And listeners, we have, I think, 15 or 16 episodes. So get caught up on FutureProof, because we'll have new episodes coming at you. And we are just thrilled today to have Ms. Angie Cole with us, who is a graduate for the first time, because she has multiple degrees, but a first-time graduate in 1985 in the late. That's the late 1900s. If anybody
it was just the other day. I'm sorry. Yeah. Like, I keep saying 20 years ago was 1974.
No,
right?
And
people are like, no, 20 years ago was early 2000.
Yeah,
like,
it's sad.
It was the other day for me, Angie.
It's sad.
Okay, like, don't you agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Angie, we ask all the guests this question, but very few of them know it, because
come
Okay, I know. I know.
I missed
We're
you.
gonna
Go.
So, Eimee and I would.
She'll know. I'm
know,
sorry.
She's gonna know.
Sorry. Okay.
Well,
okay.
our second year of working together, we decided we were a little bit of Laverne and Shirley approach to our jobs, and starting the podcast. Scrappy, didn't know what we were doing, but we're gonna figure it out. Mm-hmm. So, do you know who Laverne and Shirley is?
I do.
Yes. Yes.
I remember the show.
Okay.
Yes,
All right. That is wonderful,
yes,
because we've had a lot of guests who they were like, nope. They had no idea. They didn't even, it wasn't on Nick at Night. They weren't even in any kind of syndication. They had no idea.
Right.
But we love that reference because we felt like they were these sort of two scrappy women that were just trying to make something of themselves out in the world, and really had very little resources, but kind of pulled it together.
What you had.
So, and now what about this? Is another one, another 70s reference.
Let's do it. Here we go.
Welcome back, Cotter.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Yes.
Okay, she gets to stay.
Well, so I think my ringtone from Jayne for a while was "Welcome Back." Cotter.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Definitely remember that.
We kind of felt like we were also the, we'd gotten so connected with our students and their lives and the challenges and the classroom setting, which was a little bit like Welcome Back, Cotter, in that we're teaching a class and people are just kind of coming and going and walking in and bringing their kids, and it was that's what it is. It's community college.
Yeah.
So Angie, you are a graduate. Tell us about how you got to Cincinnati State. This was a journey.
Yes, it was. So when I graduated high school in 1983. My original goal was to be a nurse. So I had done all this preparation in high school with all the maths and sciences, I wanted to go to University of Cincinnati, did a visit and found out I was accepted, but I was placed on the waiting list. And I said, I don't want to wait to go to school. I want to go straight to school. So looked at Cincinnati Technical College then.
Yeah, CTC.
CTC. And enrolled in the surgical technology program. Did that for a semester which was 10 weeks, a term.
Yes, back in terms.
It was a term. And I was like, I don't think this is it. But I knew I wanted to do healthcare. So then I said, well, let me switch to something else really quick that's going to keep me going. Didn't want to withdraw. So I said, well, let me jump in this health unit coordinator program real quick until I figure out what I really want to do. And then I ended up going to school at night. And that actually was the move.
Yes.
I didn't know it was the move, but it was. So I did that program with Daphne Robinson. It was several terms at the time. And by the time we completed that, I ended up getting accepted at the Christ Hospital for clinical experience, which then should have been a full term. But we were successful in the fact that we only had to do, I think, 4 or 6 weeks we had to complete, because then at the time there was a job fair held here on campus.
Yeah.
Lots of different organizations. And at the time, Children's Hospital, which is now Cincinnati Children's, was on site. And my whole class got hired.
Oh, I love this.
Our whole class got hired because we had the experience, and there were a lot of open positions in the city. So I ended up not completing my clinical experience and starting at Cincinnati Children's now in September of 1985.
Wow.
So that's when it kind of brought me here, and that's what the result was. I ended up with a position at Cincinnati Children. I started out on nights, went to days. No, nights, then went to evenings, went to days, and then my career kind of flourished from there. But that's what got me here.
Right. And the job fair is critical. I mean, it still is. It still is. And, for listeners, we used to, at our college, had terms. And I love that you share the story about terms, because I think the beauty of terms for students who were starting out is that you could do anything for about 9 weeks and figure it out.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't right, it was that you could quickly pivot, and it was over.
Mm-hmm.
So that's much harder in a semester, and I'm sure you see that now as coming back as an instructor, that making that 15-week commitment, is a much greater challenge for some of our students coming in. And also, you mentioned that being a night student, which is we really at a certain point had a very vibrant evening college.
Really?
I remember there was a distinct
Oh, wow.
switch that would happen in the afternoon when around 5 o'clock all of our evening students would show up, and the colleges sort of come alive again in the evening with all the and there was evening programming. We would have an evening job fair. I even remember we had events that would happen in the evening.
Oh,
it
so
was
beautiful.
the most necessary shift I needed, because and I tell students this now, I was up here playing around, going to school during the day, socializing, doing all the fun stuff, and wasn't quite as serious as I needed to be. And I was paying for my college.
Yeah.
So, I was like, figure it out. So I went to night school, and it was perfect because the culture was just different. More people who work full time. Sure. They had their
a different level of maturity in the evening.
Yes.
Wow.
It was good. And I noticed it immediately as a young person.
Yeah.
That would have been a cool thing to watch, how the dynamics of the day of the students who were more traditional students and then non-traditional students in the evening, and the energy and then being in classes with folks who were really in classes with folks who were a lot like you.
Yeah, and experienced, just the experience in the class based on the diversity of age and backgrounds, which is why I love Cincinnati State even now, because of the diversity of thought. You just are exposed to, it's the diversity of the school is rich in the classroom. You see that in the discussions. And so that's kind of when I started knowing I gotta get back there.
Yes,
because I love what we do.
So you made a career out of children's, but you didn't just have a career. And I love this about what we've discovered in interviewing and in the podcast is that people just didn't stop with working. So many of our guests are like, I worked, and then I did my degree, and then I had 2 kids, and then I had this job, and I was like, I'm looking like I need a nap, and your experience was very similar. You went back while working full time and finished lots of degrees. So tell us about, because you had a second journey at Cincinnati State.
I did. So when I left, what was this, children's from 1985 until 2020, and my career progressed after like the 5th year. So I started out as a health unit coordinator. And I was in the emergency department, went to the float pool in 1987, which had a great responsibility because I had to be able to float to all of the units in the hospital and know how to work there. And I was scared to death, but it was also the best move I could have made because it just grew me.
Yes.
And then it positioned me for a position that they were newly creating that had formerly been held by a registered nurse. And it was called the unit clerk coordinator. And the responsibilities for that position were to oversee the health unit coordinators across the organization, to pivot and direct onboarding, training, and whatever else there was a need for, because it was fairly new. So after working in the float pool and working under leaders who became familiar with me, they were like, I want you to apply for this position. I didn't have a degree, didn't have any supervisory experience, just float experience. And I was one of those people who was always kind of looking for, what can we do? How can we make things better? So I was always
it's good,
kind of wanting to do that. And so in 1990 is when my career shifted to more of a supervisory role. All of my transitions at Cincinnati Children's were from peer to leader, peer to leader, peer to leader, which is the most difficult shift to make when you go from being their peer to now you're the boss. So, but I made that shift several times, and that moving into leadership and supervision just positioned me to start thinking about getting back to school. And I always wanted to go back, but I got married, had kids, and trying to figure out the right time. But that time came, and in 2004, I made the decision to come back to school, and I knew I wanted to finish my degree. So I came back to Cincinnati State, worked very closely with my advisor, who at the time was Julie McLaughlin, and she helped me to figure out how I could use my current work experiences and things that I had done to cross off classes and, write co-ops, right for to be able to demonstrate my experience, which indicated, yep, I've gotten that done. So she was instrumental in helping me to move through that path. So I was here from 2004 to 2007, part-time, and got my associate degree. So then
2 plus 2.
What was your associate's degree in?
Just Associate of Arts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you were in Jayne's backyard.
Associate of Arts, yeah. And so I did that, and then I immediately enrolled at Indiana Wesleyan University.
Okay.
And that's when I worked on my bachelor's for a couple years, a bachelor's of sciences in management.
Nice.
And then they had started a new program at Northern Kentucky University. It was called Executive Leadership and Organizational Change.
Wow.
So then I enrolled in that program and finished my master's degree. So I was in school for 7 years straight, going part-time. But absolutely loved it. My initial goal was to go back to school and get my degree as an educator. I thought I wanted to be an educator.
You are an educator.
I am educator.
You are an educator. Yes.
But, and I really thought that's what I wanted my emphasis to be. But fortunately, my leader, boss Bill Lecker at the time, he really encouraged me to think about that. He said, Angie, you got all this management experience. It just makes sense to go that route. And I thought about it, and I started looking at different programs, and I'm so glad I did, because the why behind the what became apparent with a lot of things I had learned on the job. I got the theory. I got the understanding on why we do things that way as managers, as leaders. And I was very much interested in learning more about how to lead organizational change because...
And look at the change that Children's has gone through.
Oh, my gosh.
Number one children's hospital in the country.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So.
And what I've tell students all the time, and I think about this, there's more than one way. Educators aren't just in the classroom, right? That's not the only place that people are teachers.
Right.
People are teachers at work in fields like human resources, or in fields like leadership and management, where you are teaching, you are instructing. It's just not English and math or spelling or whatever. It's this whole other ways that people need to learn and be coached, and that's a completely valuable form of education that's outside the classroom.
That's true.
So
so you're right.
And you were talking about how can we do this better, doing organizational change before you even had the degree in it.
Oh, yes. Well, that's true. That's funny.
You were like, how do we do this better? And then I'm like, well, of course she got the degree in it, but you might have been teaching in the classroom.
That's a nice observation. Yeah.
So you make this all sound so easy, Angie. Like you're like, and then
7 years.
Not always. Yeah.
So, but you are accomplished and driven. And so tell me, did you set out to do this? Were you always driven in this way?
My mom always told me that I was always a very disciplined child. So I am kind of one of those people where if I put my mind to something, I'm going to push through. And even in the difficulty. And it's funny, we were just talking about this in class yesterday, talking about grit. And resilience and what that really looks like. And I didn't know I was a gritty person. But I do think that, but has it always been easy? No. Is there sacrifices you have to make? Yes. Are you going to run into obstacles? Yes. And that's another thing we talk in the classroom about. It's not if, but when. When that obstacle shows up, what are you going to do? Do you have a plan? You might get down, but you got to get back up. What's your plan? Think about it now, so when it shows up, you're not surprised. So, I think when I first started working in leadership at Cincinnati Children's and interviewing people before I started going back to school, that's when the desire just continued to grow. Because I would interview people and hear them talk about their experiences in school and things they were learning, how to apply to the position they were applying for. And I would just think, oh, gosh, I got to get back to school. So it was always kind of there. It was just about the right time when to go back. So I think by virtue of the work I was doing and the people I was interviewing and meeting for the many years, it just sort of funneled or fueled that fire that I had to get back to school and do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
When you think about those, you're in class hearing about how you got to think about those obstacles before they come. You sound like someone that had already done that, So how do you, and what were some of the obstacles that you had, and how did you overcome them?
I think the first one, when I first came back to school, the first obstacle was just overcoming my mind of, can I really do this?
Yeah.
Can
Okay,
I really
am I supposed to be
do
here?
this? Yeah, is it the
Imposter,
right time?
yeah.
Yes, imposter syndrome, exactly.
Yeah.
And, then trying to get over some of the guilt of, I'm leaving my kids,
Yes,
even though they were
yes.
younger. I mean, they were
Right,
in junior
we know
high,
that.
but it was like,
Still feel that.
how can I do this? Is it really the right time? Is there ever a right time? So really having to work through some of that muck in my mind, and really knowing that, I've done all that I can. I had a strong support system. So I had to start understanding, not focusing on what feels like I can't do, but what can I do? What's in my sphere of control? What resources do I have around me that are helping me and are really encouraging me? I had a husband who was encouraging. I had my mom, my dad, and my children were like, "Yes, Mom, you can do this. We
Wow,
got
that's all you need right there."
Even though we're still like,
Yes.
and I tell the students this, once I started, I had to realize that my priorities had to shift. I mean, because I was a person who cooked every day, tried to keep the laundry up, kept the house together, and all that. Those were still important. But when I did those things, may have had to shift. My mom helped me with that. She's like, Angie, you might not be able to do this and this and this on this day. You may have to push this to this day and do this on this day. So I had to recalibrate my thinking to push through some of the obstacles that I did face. They were mostly for me because of me being this, I'll say, overachiever, or wanting to get everything done and keep everything like I'm used to it being. I had to realize that in order to do this, which are as additive, and maintain those things that are still important, you're going to have to relook at some things. And I think that's why...
Circle of compromise.
Yeah.
What's my circle of compromise?
What can I do and maintain some sanity and still move forward in the things that are important to me and that I have support for? And that's why it's funny when I graduate, I said, this degree has everybody's name on it. It's got my mom's name. It's got my kids' name. Has my husband's name. Because I couldn't have done it without them.
How beautiful.
Yeah, I said that, and I still say that today. This had their name on it.
Oh.
So
and you're back here teaching. You're back here teaching. So you're teaching FYE, which is our first year experience course. So you are seeing students right at the very beginning, and probably you're like, I've seen all the behaviors. I know it. I've seen it.
Yeah.
What are some of your, you just have a great classroom story or an inspiring story?
I do. It's been a year by the end of the semester because I taught my official first class last summer.
Okay.
And it was a 10-week semester. So I'm jumping in 5 weeks short and covered it all. But it was the best class, the best first class. I believe that was a divine gift. That I had students who wanted to be there. The class was small, so it was a great playground to kind of figure out how to do this. I think if I had to put a cherry on top as to the great classroom experience, for me, it's the content of FYE. It's foundational lessons to learn that are just life lessons. And if you can grasp this stuff, all the modules, goal setting, time management, metacognition, career, all the things we talk about are foundational and will stick with you for life. They won't go away just because you're in this classroom. And what I appreciate most about this course is that not only is it helping you for life, I learn something every time I teach it.
Yeah.
I get a different slant every time I teach it. Yeah. And I've never taught. I mean, I did the clinical experiences when I was overseeing that at Cincinnati Children's, but being in the classroom like this, and especially face to face, it's just rich. So hearing the students or seeing the students having those aha moments, you can see when the gears are going or when they've had a epiphany about something. You can see that literally, and you can't buy that.
Yeah.
And to think that you may have had just a possibility of planting a seed to get people thinking differently and believing differently, like I had to believe differently. That's rich.
Mm-hmm.
It's just rewarding. It's just very rewarding.
Well, it's interesting because early on in the conversation, you mentioned your advisor coming back to Cincinnati State was Julie McLaughlin.
Mm-hmm.
And Julie McLaughlin is head of the first year experience program, which is the class you were teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So did she never let you go?
What do you mean?
Did she always hold on to you? She was a mentor.
Oh, yeah. She was available. She was accessible. And I think at the time, because she was an academic advisor, right?
Yeah.
When she first started. So, I mean, I just can still remember, and Julie was a quick mover. You know, she was a fast talker, but she was very much able to look at my stuff. I mean, it didn't take long. She looked at my information. She understood where I was coming from. She understood where I was trying to go. And she directed me. That's why, you know.
And then it came full circle to come back and teach.
Oh, yeah. And I didn't even know that. I mean, that's not where I started. I started in health professions.
Yes.
Teaching medical terminology in the Healthy and Coordinating program, which was a perfect fit right in my wheelhouse because I came out of healthcare.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I oversaw the Healthy and Coordinating program at Cincinnati Children. So, yeah, that was fine.
Yeah.
It was great. But I became curious when I saw something in one of the newsletters that they needed FYE instructors. I said, first year experience. I said, I gotta remember people talking about that class. I had an
It probably wasn't there when you started. Because that program was really, I think, in its infancy, and Julie was one of the people that kind of grew it.
Right?
And yeah.
So I started talking around and asking people about it. Some of my former employees who had completed the course and asking them about it. And they were like, oh, that would be a good fit for you. I'm like, really?
Nice.
So then I just said, well, let me just check it out.
So what is next for you? You are teaching, but it seems like maybe there's a little something else you've got that you want to do.
I've been thinking about, and I've talked to Julie about this, academic advising. What would that look like here? Looking at something maybe even more part-time, because I do just like the idea of working closely with working more closely with the students. I love the classroom, so I don't want to give that up. But I think it's sort of like the why behind the what, and I'm sort of like this person that likes to understand the big picture and how this impacts that. And if I can help students understand how this impacts that, maybe I can help to influence or persuade or guide in some sort of a way. And I think the part of that appeals to me is because there's a coaching component to that, it seems. And I've been trained as a coach and did some executive coaching at Cincinnati Children's, and I'm kind of wanting to get back in that space a little bit. So that's sort of where I'm kind of thinking, but not running, but just sort of exploring. So I'm just kind of putting feelers out to leverage, because I have to work. I love working. I have to work because I need that stimulation.
It's nice. This is the phase of life too that no one really tells you about. That is the beauty of this stage of our lives, because I'm also from the late 1900s, and that you get this ability to have some discernment about projects that you do and ways that you want to influence your next path, and
make a difference.
That's a great space to be in.
It really is. I was just appreciating that even yesterday when I got home after teaching class. I was actually sleepy, and I'm not a napper, but I took a nap.
Ooh, I miss naps.
I said, I'm going to take a nap. I laid down at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and got up at 3. And I said, I'm loving this phase of my life. I love how I feel after I come home from teaching.
30. Nap 30.
Knowing that I can. Then I got up and I did my announcements that went out this morning. I looked at my lesson plans. And so, I'm enjoying this.
Well, Angie, thank you so very much for being here with us today.
We have about 5 jobs we're gonna hire Angie
you
for.
Want a job? We got after this. You're like, you want a job? We got a job.
Send several links out.
We will continue this conversation offline. But
right.
please, will you please stay in touch with us on any new developments and achievements?
Cincinnati State is like Hotel California. You know, like you can check out, but you can't leave. That's what it is here. So, like Angie, we've got your number now. And
this was fun.
And for our listeners, please don't forget to like and subscribe to catch all of our new episodes and to find out what happens when we stop saying no and start saying yes.
The FutureProof podcast is brought to you from Studio 459, up on the hill at Cincinnati State's main campus in Clifton. This podcast is produced in conjunction with the Cincinnati State Audio-Video Production Program, its students and faculty. If you like what you heard here, please hit the subscribe button. If you're an employer or potential student interested in the programs Cincinnati State has to offer, please visit cincinnatistate.edu.